Let me just say a few words about what I see as the federal government's role. I'm going to open it up to you. You'll do anything you want, make comments, ask questions, and panel will get involved as well. Number one, real unemployment in this country is not what you read in the papers at 5%. It's really actually double that when you look at people who've given up looking for work and people working part-time, and obviously in communities like this, the unemployment rate is a lot higher than that. So what do we need to do? As a country, we need to create millions of decent paying jobs, right? A lot of ways that you could do it. Sam talked about some of them. But one obvious way that the economists think is the fastest way to do it is in your state and in my state, as it happens, we got thousands of bridges that are in need of repair. We got roads. You know, in Vermont, sometimes people go down a pothole, we don't see them again for weeks. You know, probably not only Vermont, okay? I was in Flint, Michigan a couple of months ago. You all know what goes on in Flint, Michigan. Kids are getting poisoned by the water they drink. Well, it's not just Flint, Michigan. We got hundreds of communities where the water systems are inadequate. People are worried about the water they're drinking. We need to improve our water systems, our wastewater plants. We used to have the best rail system in the entire world. Guess what? That is no longer the case. Our airports are in many cases outdated. Parts of this country, our levees and our dams. If we put $1 trillion into rebuilding our infrastructure, we can create 13 million good-paying jobs and a hell of a lot of jobs right here in West Virginia where those jobs are most needed. And when we rebuild our infrastructure, we make our country safer, more productive, more efficient. Right? That's number one, creating jobs. Number two, we got millions and millions of people in this country who are working for wages that are absolutely inadequate. So you work 40 or 50 hours a week, and in some cases you're going to be worse off than when you began the week. All right, so let's be clear. The federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. All right, people can't live on it. I believe we got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage so that if you work 40 hours a week, you know what? You're living with a modicum of security and dignity. What does that mean? About $15 an hour. Three, we got a problem in this country. It has gone on for a long time based on old-fashioned sexism. And that women today make about 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. Well, I think we got to end that. We need pay equity for women. They deserve 100 cents on the dollar compared to men. Number four, we have had in this country for many, many years disastrous trade policies which were written by corporate America and were designed to enable large corporations to shut down in this country, not pay workers here a living wage, and then move to Mexico and China and other low-wage countries. Pay people pennies an hour. We have got in your state, here in West Virginia, my understanding is that as a result of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement with Mexico, you have lost about 30,000 jobs since the creation of NAFTA, good-paying manufacturing jobs. We have got to end those disastrous trade policies and tell corporate America that if they want us to buy their products, they damn well better manufacture those products in West Virginia and Vermont and in America. In those communities like McDowell County and many others who are transitioning away from coal, these communities need help. It is not the coal miners' fault in terms of what's happening in this world. We've got legislation that would put $41 billion into helping those miners and other workers in the fossil fuel industry and rebuild those communities that have been hurt by the loss of fossil fuel jobs. 5, what we have got to do is recognize what every other country on earth, major country, industrialized country, is doing. How many countries are there, major industrialized countries in the world, that do not guarantee health care to all people? Anyone know? You got it. There is one country. Jane and I, Jane, stand up. That's my wife, Jane. We live in Burlington, Vermont. We live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. It ain't a big deal. Everybody in Canada, the children, the elderly, the rich, the poor, everybody has health care as a right. They've had it for decades. They spend substantially less per person on health care than we do. I had to take some people from Vermont over the Canadian border 20 or so years ago in order to buy prescription drugs, because the cost of prescription drugs in Canada are far lower than they are in the United States, where we pay by far the highest prices in the world, while the drug companies make excessive profits. So I believe, and I want you all to think what it would mean, not just in McDowell County, but this whole country, if we had health care as a right for all people. All right? One out of 5 Americans can't even afford the prescription drugs their doctors prescribe. That's pretty crazy. So we have to lower the cost of prescription drugs. Now, education. I grew up in a family, did not have any money. My mother, my dad never went to college. And there are millions of families, and Sabrina was talking about this, where the kids don't have parents who ever went to college, and they can't even dream. The idea of thinking about going to college is almost beyond their comprehension, right? It's like going to the moon. It ain't going to happen. I believe that in a changing world, where the economy has changed, we need to understand that public education is not just first grade through 12th grade. That's what we've had for decades. That's pretty good. But in a changing world, we need to know that today a college degree in many respects is the equivalent of what a high school degree was 50 years ago, which is why we need to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And I don't want anybody to think that this is a radical idea. It's not some big radical idea. It exists in Germany, it exists in Scandinavia, and other countries around the world. It makes sense for the future of our country that we invest in our young people. Sabrina mentioned, what, you're $30,000 in debt from student debt? All right, here is a young woman who is $30,000 in debt. There are millions, literally millions, 3-4 million people who are in debt. Talk to people who are $100,000 debt. Doctor in Burlington, Vermont, $300,000 in debt. What was the crime that she committed? Did you go to Las Vegas and lose money? No, you went out and you got an education, right? Which improved your life. Good for your community. All right, she should not be being punished for getting an education. She should be rewarded for getting an education. So there is a lot that the federal government can do. I'll give you one other example. There is only, again, one major country on earth that doesn't guarantee paid family and medical leave. You know what that means? It means right now in West Virginia, in Vermont, you're going to have a low-income woman, working-class woman, giving birth today. She, because she does not have enough money, will likely in 2 or 3 weeks be forced to separate herself from a newborn baby and go back to work in order to earn the income that she needs to take care of her family. That's wrong. A mom and a dad should be able to stay home with their newborn baby. If somebody in the family is sick, people should be able to stay home. We're the only major country that doesn't guarantee paid family and medical leave. And that's why I believe we've got to pass legislation currently in Congress guaranteeing 3 months paid family and medical leave. Now, I'm often criticized by people who say, well, Bernie, all these ideas are great ideas, but they're expensive. That's true. We want to provide Free tuition in public colleges and universities and lowest student debt cost us about $70 billion a year. It's a lot of money. So how are we going to pay for that? Well, in that case, we're going to pay for it by imposing a tax on Wall Street speculation. Wall Street's greed and illegal behavior hurt this country enormously. Millions of people lost their jobs, they lost their homes, they lost their life savings. We bailed them out. Now it is time for Wall Street to help the middle class of this country. The last point that I want to make gets back to the first point. If we were in Haiti right now, if we were in some poor, impoverished third world country, what we would say is, wouldn't it be great if we had a strong educational system and all of our kids can go to college, or a great healthcare system where we had a wonderful clinic down the road here with good doctors and nurses and low-cost prescription drugs? Wouldn't it be great? But in the poor countries, they say, we're poor, we can't afford it. Major point that I want to make to everybody here. We are not a poor country. We are the richest country on earth. And the problem is the policies that take place in Washington every single day are policies designed to help wealthy campaign contributors. All right, people who go to dinners for $350,000 a couple. Anybody here been to dinner lately? For $350,000 a couple making a campaign contribution?
Not this week.
All right, anybody here put $1 million into a super PAC lately? All right, that's another world. But that's the world of Wall Street and big money interests who make huge campaign contributions and then hold the people they give those contributions to accountable to work for them. So now you have the insane proposition right now in Washington today, where you got many folks, mostly Republicans, who want to give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to billionaires, the wealthiest people in this country. And at the same time, they want to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and federal aid to education. All right. So I think what we need to do, let me get a little bit political here, but I want to stay on the issues of McDowell County. The solution is that millions of people are going to have to get involved in the political process. They're going to have to stand up and fight back. They're going to have to demand a government that represents all of us and not just the 1%. That's nothing new. That's the way change in America always takes place. It is the history of the trade union movement. It is the history of the United Coal Miners Workers Union. People stood together and fought back. It's the history of the civil rights movement. It's the history of the women's movement, the history of the gay movement, whatever movements there are. The only way change takes place, people come together, stand up and fight back and say that the status quo is not acceptable. And I think that's the moment we're in right now. So, I just want to thank all of you for being here, and I want to open it up to questions and comments. And if you got really, really hard questions, direct them to the people behind me. But I'll try to do what I want. Okay, please just be loud, stand up, be loud. Oh, we got some mics. Okay, you don't have to be. There's one mic. We got two mics. Okay, all right. Who's ready to?